you're watching Mary Keeps You Company. I've just started watching it, and I've just started recording it. Today, but first of all, this vlog is here to keep you company. Nothing more. Do we solve life's problems? No. I mean, which ones? Where would we start? I don't, like react to another video, another, show. More and more of those, I think, right? It's not a how-to. It's not always about quilts. And a lot of people, if they wanted to see what I was up to on YouTube, they would find a lot of quilt content. But that's not really what this is. Sometimes it will be that. But today, it is not. Today, I'm going to tell you about what's going on in my life. There's a lot of things going on. I mean, there always are. But I have to tell you about a problem. And I want this content to be, if not relaxing, then like, neutral. I don't want to tell you about like some murder that took place or, anything distressing. I'm not here to distress you. I'm here to de-stress you. So none of that, content that makes you go, ugh. That is what I try to do. What I am trying to do. Today is maybe a little bit different, because I am distressed about something, and I'm here to keep you company. So you can half listen, you can fully listen. I'm not going to cry or anything. So it's not like that, You can still just go along and like do your stuff at your house, Maybe you're sewing. You can just put Mary on. Okay, great. You can still be texting, the people that you need to text. I don't care. I'm just background noise. But if I say a few things, that are kind of like, I'm sorry. So we're here in London and we love it here. And there's so much that's great. But there's something that isn't so great. And that is the apartment where we live. When I tell you what's going on, it's like, it's tough because it could be like a schadenfreude moment when you sort of get some twinge of pleasure from someone else's displeasure or embarrassment, because people are like that. And, sometimes we laugh nervously at someone, or we, think someone's sort of got what they asked for or whatever, because we're really glad we're not in that position. And when I tell you about my story of woe, I hope that you feel grateful that you're not in our position. So the schadenfreude part comes in because we didn't see this apartment in person before we rented it. So we rented an apartment sight unseen. Now, that's not great. Don't recommend it. But it was necessary because we were coming here during a pandemic, which is hard enough for Eric's work. We came here. And so we were in Chicago and we knew we were going to be here in April. So we have taken 2 international flights. 3. We were here last year and we went home, and we came here this time. But that's like, we don't want, any extra, like that's a lot, a lot of like risk. And so we don't want to take any more risk than we have to. So the idea that we would fly to London to search for an apartment and then fly home until it was time to move, that wasn't going to happen. Also, oh my gosh, like that's a lot of money. We're not going to spend it like that. So we did a lot of research. We looked at a lot of listings. We knew we wanted to live in the East End area. We knew, and I'll tell you why. We knew there are video tours now. You can talk to a letting agent and they can like live stream with you. They can take you through the apartment, in the comfort of your own home, an ocean away, and you can see what's going on. So we did that. We did all that, and we found this place. And we rented it. We rented it for 6 months because, it could be a disaster, right? So we didn't want to be on the hook for a year in case it was really bad news. Bad news. Really bad. Now, I'm grateful for a roof over my head, and that is true, and that is the only way to be, right? Because as you will soon hear about, there are a lot of people who do not have roofs over their heads, or there is not a roof guaranteed, right, from night to night. Disenfranchised people, people who have lost everything. I mean, yeah, there are people who are homeless or otherwise in a really precarious position, and they don't have a place to go to when it rains or when it's time to go home. And so I'm grateful, right? But what the video tours didn't show us, there is a crazy amount of drug traffic in this little corner of the earth, this little spot on the earth. And I mean, it's pretty rough. It's pretty bad. There's a few things that are going on, but that's like the main thing. The construction that's happening outside on the street across from us is the other thing. That's pretty hard. Like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. these guys, and they're like building a building. They're not just doing like some scaffolding work. They're like putting steel girders into place. If you need to get up early in the morning, here, don't set an alarm. Just like clockwork, a steel girder, like whining into place. That'll do it. Gets you up right away. So there are I'm pretty sure there are 2 apartments, one over there and one like on the other side of that building. Because it's like a building complex, sort of. This is something that happens, like, it's not really like this so much in the States, I don't think. But like there are, in this like development where we are, there's like different buildings and they have names, like Mary House and Eric House, and so there's like 5 or 6 in this development. Cool buildings, old brick, like, yeah, whatever. The building's fine. Theoretically, it's fine. So in one of the houses, one of the buildings, like over there, for sure, there's a drug dealer there. Drug dealers, they have there's definitely a business taking place over there. A lot of people in and out, and the people who are in and out of that place are, they're addicts. Like, it's clear that they are, they have a habit, and they show up there, and they get what they need, and then they go away, and then they come back whenever they come back. And yeah, and so, are they going in for like a COVID test? No. And we know, that this is happening for a few reasons. Okay, so there's one place for sure. There's another place we're pretty sure. And then like in the parking lot, or in like the driveway, the parking lot that kind of goes through to the street, Eric and myself on 2 separate occasions were offered, hey, do you want to buy some, Coca-Cola? Let's put it that way. I have no problem. I mean, weed dealers, like, who cares? Who cares? And, marijuana is legal anyway, in so many places, not here, I'm pretty sure. But, anybody who's selling pot, like, it's just not a big deal at all. In my experience, like, weed dealers and people who smoke it, harmless, completely harmless. I'd rather run into like a really high person, coming home if I was coming home at 3 a.m. for some reason, I would much rather run into somebody who was smoking grass than run into somebody who'd been drinking all night, right? So weed dealers, no problem. If that's who had asked me if I wanted to buy something from him, whatever. But selling like Coca-Cola, I don't know if it's okay for me to say thing on YouTube. I don't know. So I'm just saying that, but you can put it together. That's a different level. I mean, it's a different level. It's like drug dealing senior class, as opposed to like freshman class, who's like maybe selling whippets, which are really very popular here, or something else. So that's not cool, right? No one should have to live in a place where they have to avoid drug dealers, or they have to, talk to a drug dealer. If you want to talk to a drug dealer, let's hope that you really want to be there, you know what I mean? So I don't want to. And especially not like near my house, or near my apartment at night. And so that was intense. And then there are junkies, okay? And that's the name for people who are, addicted and sitting in doorways, like sitting on a stoop under a closed, sitting in a doorway, nodding off, like that, from heroin or whatnot. I don't know if junkie is a pejorative term. I don't know. But addict seems to be a little too general. Everybody's addicted to something, probably. So these junkies, right, they come through the parking lot too, whether they score it over there or they're just making their way somewhere else. I mean, there's just often somebody shuffling through, like right down there, we're on the third floor. So, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy. And Sunday, a couple days ago, Eric and I were going to ride our bikes around, just kind of explore stuff, ride bikes around. It was a nice day. The sun was out. In fact, the sun was really out. It was a blue sky kind of day, which is not that common here. There's usually clouds. So it was really a bright day. Not hot, but the sun was really out. And we go over to get our bikes, which are locked up right over there. And they're our second bikes. Both of us have a different bike than we had at the beginning of the trip because both of our bikes that we had were stolen. Yeah. Sucks, It's really sucks. So we're going to get our bikes, and there's a woman on the pavement laying on her back, breathing very shallowly, and she had one shoe off, and she had probably one tooth, because her mouth was open, and she was sometimes we thought she wasn't breathing at all, but then she would take a small breath. And she was laying, the reason I mentioned the sun is that she was laying on the sidewalk, called the pavement here, completely, in the sun. I mean, the sun was beating down on her, right? And she was in this position on the sidewalk. A lot of people passed by her, saw her, and kept walking, And we don't need to have, a little Good Samaritan medal for this, but we called an ambulance because she was either going to die, which is horrible, or she was going to, I felt like she was obviously in danger of someone doing something to her. I didn't want anything else to befall this woman. So I called 999. It was my first time doing that, which was exciting. Well, not exciting, but it was my first experience, calling emergency services, which, it's a good thing to do. You don't want to have to do that, but I'm glad that I had that experience, so I know what to do again next time. Emergency preparedness. The ambulance came, and because I told the people on the phone what was going on, it was just one guy, and he wasn't in a big, the normal size ambulance that has the gurney and everything like that. It was just a guy. He had a siren on, but he was in a kind of Volkswagen Golf kind of ambulance. Maybe a little bigger than that. But he came out, and he was so sweet, the other reason that we wanted to stay with her is because if she did die, I was then we would be witnesses to that. We would be able to, answer the police who, might want to know time of death and stuff like that. And that might be important to her family, right? Or, crimes, man. Maybe they know they could figure out who sold her the stuff, and she died at this time. And so, maybe they could catch a bad guy, So maybe he lives over there. So the guy comes, and he's so nice. And he's we tell him what's going on. And he's like, okay, I got it from here. Thank you for helping out. And I heard him he went over to the woman, and he was like, "You've had a bit, love? How you doing?" And it was nice. So he had a defibrillator or something like that with him. So we rode on. But that was terrible. You know, it was really bad. And it's not I mean, they're the people using drugs around here. There's so many of them, and we pass by the same ones a lot. And Eric the other day, you know, he was like, "Hey, you know, they're pretty much harmless from what we can tell. I mean, they're using drugs, and this is a place where they come maybe to score, or maybe they're just, you know, kind of comfortable here." And so Eric said hi to the guy the other day who sits on that street, and he was like, "Don't do what we do." So it's like, you know, but then being offered, you know, in the parking lot, that's where you get into, okay, not great situation. Anyway, the epilogue, I guess, to the story of the woman who was in the tracksuit, laying flat on her back, potentially on the verge of death, is that the very next day, I came home from wherever I was, and she was right there. Yeah, sitting up this time, looking for her man, I think, if you know what I mean, looking for her dealer. Little Lou Reed reference. I'm looking for my man. So she was right there, and whatever had happened the day before didn't faze her, didn't affect her. She was in the grips, right, of her addiction and sitting in the same spot, and yeah, it was awful, right? It's a terrible thing to see. And then actually yesterday, so when I told that story to other people, you know, that's where the story ended, was like, we saw this happened, and then the next day she was right back there. But yesterday, something else happened with her. We came with our bikes from being out. We were locking them up, and she's right there. I mean, there's like her and then like our bikes, you know? So we're like, hey, she has no idea, you know, that we like maybe saved her life the other day or just helped her out in a bad moment, which is crazy, you know, to be that out of it, right? So we were like, hey, and she said, do you have any water? Do you have any water? And we did have water. And I had like a tall bottle of water. It was about half gone. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Here you go. And she took it and she said, oh, sparkling. She didn't, it was sparkling water. It was this kind, this is not the same water. We did not take it back. But she was, she didn't want it. I mean, it was sparkling and she wanted still water, and she was just like, oh. But meanwhile, I mean, totally haggard and you know, making the sound. I think probably I said to Eric, like, the sounds that she makes are probably like, you know, help me, and like, rah, when she's angry. It's like, it's hard to imagine that her life is, you know, it has the fullness, the richness of like all different kinds of tones, you know, surprise, delight, you know, all these things that humans should and can enjoy, you know, about life and talking with other people. You know, it's a banquet of reactions and conversation and all this stuff, and she's just, her life is really small. And you could say, well, you don't know, but I do know. She's really in a bad way. So she's, you know, she's sort of plaintively, you know, do you have anything? Do you have any water? And then we give it to her, and she's like, I don't like it. And it's hard because you don't want, she's so, you know, because her life is quite pitiful, you know, to be like annoyed at her or anybody who's in that state is like, you know, you don't really get to be, right? Or do you? Because Eric showed me today. He showed me a picture. He was like, check this out. And he showed me a picture on his phone, and it was the bottle of water, like in the doorway, not untouched. Yeah, she just left it there. And I was like, we paid good money for that water. I mean, whatever. But I mean, it wasn't like fancy water, but we bought, you know, we bought a bottle of water, lady. So it's a weird feeling, you know, when you're like annoyed, when you want to be annoyed with someone, but you don't really feel like that's fair, you know. And maybe being annoyed with someone is never fair because people are ridiculous. and we're all disasters in one way or the other. So getting annoyed at someone is like, I mean, why, have compassion instead, right? Easy for me to say. So the other distressing story, anecdote, a little situation that I've dealt with here is I saw a fight between two guys. They were on the sidewalk at the front of the building, and I was home alone. So it was like in the middle of the day, and I heard a commotion. I heard two men yelling, like really not like eh, bleh, bleh, but like yeah. I mean, when you hear something that like is maybe a crisis or it's different, right? You know that like when the pandemic began, I'll never forget. Like I was driving on a quilt folk trip in Nevada, and it was the way the journalists on the radio were talking. It was like, oh, this is different, right? They were like, it wasn't just news to fill time, and it wasn't, commentary, thank God. And, it was just like news was coming in, like the NBA was canceling the season, Disneyland was closing its doors, and there was this urgency, and it was like, this is real news, like something's happening. And the journalists and the news announcers sounded different because it was different. So this fight, these two men shouting sounded different. And I opened the window and I leaned my head out the door or out the window. And I could see, we're on the third floor, I think I mentioned, and I could see down they were right below me, right below 3 floors down, which is not that far. I mean, it's, I'm not in a high rise. So these two guys were fighting. There was a black guy and a white guy, and they were really mad at each other. And they were starting to, or it seemed like the black guy was really mad at the white guy because he was like, approaching him. And it was like like they were boxing, but almost like a snake bite kind of thing. I mean, it was like, he was kind of, black guy was like moving toward the white guy with aggression, and yeah, and so they started taking swings at each other, and one of them like grabbed the other's shirt and was like swinging him around or whatever. And then they broke apart. And then the black guy there's beer bottles on the sidewalk, and there were 2 of them. And he grabbed one and then he grabbed the other, and which was smart, right? Because the other guy could have grabbed the other bottle. So he got both of them. And before I knew it, like that dude rushed the other guy and hit him so hard on the head. And the bottles didn't seem to be broken, from what I could tell. But if you hit somebody that hard on the head with a piece of glass, they're going to bleed. Now I'm mentioning blood. Yeah, it's great. Mary keeps bad company. Talk about bad company. These 2 guys were really in it. And so the white guy's head just started like gushing blood. It was crazy. I mean, I've seen bar fights. I worked in a nightclub like back in the day. I saw some fights. I've seen some bloody noses, but like, damn, it was gross. It was not good. And so the guy who got hit, the white guy, was like, he put his hand to his head, and he was reeling, by the way. I mean, I thought he was going to fall down. Like he got hit so hard, and he had like blood, on his hand when he put his hand to his head and then looked at it. And I forgot how bright red blood is. It's crazy. I mean, but then you see it and it's like, that looks fake. That looks like a movie, because it's really just so bright at first. And so he's like, saying cuss words, saying swear words, looking at his hand, just completely dazed. And the other guy, the guy who hit him, kind of went in for like another hit. And the white guy's like, no, like, you win, right? You win. And then, that was it. The fight was over. And the black guy got on his bike. One of his mates, one of his friends, rode up a little bit, saw what was going on, was like, let's get out of here. And so they rode away. And I think it was a drug thing. Maybe the white guy owed the black guy money. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure the guy with the bleeding head took out a crack pipe. I'm pretty sure. I mean, he wasn't smoking weed. right? And there was this pipe that he had. So I guess if you need to relax after being hit in the head with a beer bottle, that might be good. I don't know. I've never tried that. Never had that situation in my life. I've just seen it happen, you know? So that was crazy. And then, it's good to get this out. It's like cathartic, right? Or it's not cathartic. Maybe it's cathartic for you. Maybe you've been in a really bad apartment situation and you're like, wow, I had noisy neighbors. That wasn't bad at all. By the way, you live in a city. You're going to deal with stuff. I mean, this is London. It's London. It's one of the most gorgeous, incredible cities in the world. I love it here. But that doesn't mean that it's, you know, it's not, it's London. It's huge. It's full of people. There are good guys and bad guys, and sometimes the good guys are the bad guys, and sometimes the bad guys are the good guys. You know, it's not so black and white, right? So I know, you know, with all of the good stuff in a city, there comes some less good stuff. I've lived in Chicago my entire adult life, except for some stints in New York City and in Washington, D.C. Like, you're going to hear noise from your neighbors, and you're going to hear, you know, you're going to see stuff that's like sketchy. Like, I know. What's that saying? I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. I love that. So I know, you know, it's a city. Deal with it. But there's a line, right? And it's an outrage that anybody would have to live in a place where they didn't feel safe. You know, that should never happen. But it does. And luckily, very luckily, Eric and I have a plan to get out and get to a better living situation. And I'm well aware that not everyone can do that. I mean, the kids who live over there, you know, they're too young to go try to find a new apartment, you know, and they have no agency. And that makes me really sad, you know. And I can smile at them. I can keep the front of our doorway, you know, there's flowers outside of our door, and I can smile warmly at them and compliment them on their toy or something like that. There's not so much you can do directly to help people in a bad living situation when they're perfect strangers to you, you know. And why should you be the one to like come in and like, yeah, it's complicated. So yeah. So there's the noise, whatever. I know this comes with the territory. I know, but what was the other thing? There was another thing that happened. Oh yeah. And this is the last story, I promise. One night at 2:30 in the morning, and I remember because I looked to see what hour of the night is it. I woke up to the most blood-curdling screams I have ever heard in my life. You know, IRL. You've heard some screams probably, you know, in movies that are bad. I've, you know, heard plenty of screams in movies that were pretty bad, but like in real life, like IRL, horrible, like someone was getting murdered. It was a woman. I don't know if I mentioned, it was a woman screaming. So, and that's, you know, it's the same thing. Like when you hear someone like, ah, okay, that's not good if they're screaming, but then if they're really, really screaming, it's just like every part of your body is on alert, and you know, this is a crisis, right? You're hearing something that's very bad. And so it happened, and I started up and I heard other voices, like other girls' voices, and they seemed, you know, no one was like, help, nothing like that. And it just was like the one scream, and I almost thought like I made it up, or like I was imagining it. I was like, oh. And then it came again, and it was a little bit less. And I, you know, I was like, I was chilled to the bone to hear, you know, any screaming in the middle of the night, right? But again, like it didn't seem, I don't know. I got out of bed. I woke up Eric because it was really bad. And then the scream came again, and it was terrible. And so we went downstairs. This is a very small apartment. Like it's like 700 square feet. There's a top level and a lower level. And so I woke him up, and he sleeps very deeply, and he was like, what? And then he heard the scream. So we go down to the window, the same window that I looked out of to see the fight. And we look out, and on the street, there's a girl and another girl and maybe another friend. And this girl, we think she was having a really bad trip. That's because she was screaming. No one was, attacking her. There was nobody on her at all. She was just in the street, like screaming. And so, that's probably what it was, right? It was probably like a bad trip or something. It's hard to say. And again, like, what do you do? We would have definitely called the police, like if it had sort of gone on any longer, I think probably. But what happened was the girl said, calm down, like, it's okay. And the girl sort of walked like zombie-like toward this apartment. And I didn't realize it at the time, but Eric told me he's pretty sure it's an Airbnb. And then now I think he's right, because I've seen like a bunch of shady characters, like different people, like totally different groups of people going in there. So it's some super shady Airbnb. So that's where they went, Eric told me later. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'm going to try not to. I don't want to cry. But it's hard because there's so many other changes. Even being here is a lot, obviously. New city, and learning it and getting around and figuring out what comes next here. So I need very much time to relax, get my head right, and then I can face the day. But when I don't have that, like, it's rough. It's really rough, and it's just it sucks. Have I said that yet? I should have said this at the top of it. But this neighborhood is awesome. Like, our block, thumbs down. But the neighborhood that we're in is amazing. Spitalfields is like, it's so historic. It's so, the market that's over there, Old Spitalfields Market, there's been a market on that plot of land for 315 years. Obviously, it's changed, a lot over the 315 years, but, the building that's there, it's beautiful. It's a London Market building. If you've ever been here, you know what I'm saying. These huge lofted ceilings and glass, on the top. And it's amazing. And the history, the art around here is great. Vintage shopping on Brick Lane is just ridiculous. So the Spitalfields, Shoreditch area, like, it's great. The good news is that we were apartment hunting for a while, and that was grueling. Just because Eric and we weren't communicating very well about it at the beginning. So we worked that out. Things started looking up, and we found a place that we both really like. We're going south, and South London. If you know London, you might be going, oh God, like, Mary, no, don't do that. Don't sign the lease. Because South London, which is, by that I mean over the Thames, right, crossing from the North Bank, right, to the South Bank. There's some pretty rough spots there too. And the thing is, this is London. One of the things that makes London so amazing is this mix. On one street you have a mansion or a millionaire's building, and on the next street just a socioeconomic, like, huge disparity, right? And not that that's great, but the mix, the blend of, like, all of this difference, the dynamism of the city is amazing. So no matter where you go in London, you're going to have alleyways you don't want to go down, certain muses you don't want to go through at night or whatnot. But it's London, man. Jack the Ripper, he did his best work actually in this neighborhood. Yeah, Spitalfields, Whitechapel. That's my house. That's where I am. The East End of London is notoriously, it's the rougher side, right? But it's so cool. There's so much cool stuff here. So we're going south, still kind of on the East End. We're more east than west. I'm very excited. I'm very pleased. I'm going to get right down there, check it out, get back to you. That was a Ghostbusters reference. Some of you might have gotten it. A few. I don't know. Yeah, and it's going to be better. And we're going to move in a month. And that will be great because I'll be able to go home and have some quiet in the morning. at least, It's not Shangri-La, but it passes the junkie in the doorway test. It's not going to be quite like that, I hope. And you never know, right? This is the risk you take when you come to a new city. You don't know. But it doesn't look like there's any construction there. And I don't think there will be. Yeah. So that's what's going on. So that's my story of woe with a happy ending. Thanks for listening. I know it was a lot. Next time I'll talk about something much less heavy. I promise. I'll talk about ice cream and puppies. So thanks for joining me. Let's take it out with some jazz. Let's cleanse the vibe, right? Of the dark times. Yeah, take it away.